Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to KRS TV. This is your boy Kenny, and this is How to Get Away with Murder, Season 5, Episode 8, and this is the fall finale. And the name of this episode is I Want to Love You Until the Day I Die. This was a good episode, and finally we get the reveals as to who died at the wedding, and then we also find out the truth about Gabriel Maddox, and it was everything. So let me begin. We actually see that, we get a scene with Laurel, Frank, and Bonnie. They're discussing Gabriel and Michaela, and we come to find out that they only made out. They didn't have sex. And, Michaela wants to invite him to the wedding or whatever, but Laurel is dead set, you need to tell Annalise about this. But Bonnie's like, why do that and put everyone in danger? You'll put everyone in danger if you tell. So we kind of need to fall back on this. And, Frank said, I haven't said anything because he hasn't done anything yet. But I'm right now watching him to see what his next move is going to be. And right now, he hasn't done anything that's alarming. So then we get, and it's 24 hours before the actual wedding. The day before the wedding. So we see the day before the wedding, everybody got together at Connor and Oliver's house. We see that Oliver's mom does a toast, and then we see Connor's dad is there, and Connor's dad is pretty much this real. I have to just say, Connor's dad's an asshole. He goes in there and starts talking, and he's just talking about about being photo worthy, and he just starts talking about all this stuff. And then Connor's mom just comes in and she's like, let's ignore him. And she says that to you, and she says that, first of all, you're always trying to be funny and don't nobody laugh at your jokes. But she says that to Connor and Oliver, may you have a happier marriage than we did. And then she's like, now that is funny. And then Connor's like, none of this is funny. Cheers. And then finally Laurel shows up, and we see that Laurel and Michaela have a moment, and she tells him that I've invited Gabriel to the wedding as my +1. And she was like, and then we can definitely tell Laurel feels some kind of way, because she saw that he was kind of coming on to her, and then he now moved on to Michaela. So Laurel feels some kind of way, because Laurel in a way, feels some kind of way, because it's like he chose Michaela over her. And I'm just like, see, that damn Laurel's a mess. And then we see, after while all this is going on, we get a scene between Asher and Connor's mom. And she was saying that, I'm really happy for Connor, but then again, I felt that I was going to be the Sophia to his Dorothy. And, we get from this situation that that's what connected them, is that they both are lonely. Connor's lonely, and so is Connor's mom. Because, her ex-husband is now married to a man, and she's alone. And now Connor's getting married, so now she's by herself. And then, her daughter has her own family, so she's feeling like she's by herself. And that explains why Connor and Asher were, Connor's mom and Asher was doing their thing at that wedding. Now it all makes sense. And he pretty much says that, no, you're a beautiful woman, and anybody will be lucky to have you. So, of course, that sparked the chemistry between Asher and Connor's mom. So then we see that Oliver is playing with Connor's niece and nephew, and Connor's sister is right there as well, and they're talking. And then all of a sudden, when Connor's dad comes in, he immediately, changes the subject. It's like, okay, guys, you want to go get some ice cream? So we see that Oliver is ignoring and avoiding Connor's dad, because we saw, last season, where he had told where he had told Connor that he doesn't think Oliver is right for him, and that y'all shouldn't get married and all of that. So if anything, he feels some kind of way, and of course, Connor's dad feels some kind of way, like, why does he keep avoiding me? He won't even look in my direction. So Connor has a conversation with his father, and he says that, dude, you were trying to break us up. What makes you think he would want to talk to you? And he says that, yeah, what I said, what I did and what I said was inexcusable. And he says that, oh, so Ted told you to say this, meaning his husband, and he says that, look, I just want to discuss this. Like, yeah, but you want to discuss this at our wedding? And he's like, yeah, a wedding that I'm paying for. And so Connor was like, so what you think this is? You think because you throw money out there that all is forgiven? This is me and Oliver's dream wedding. Well, this is Oliver's dream wedding. This is the wedding that he's always wanted. And this is our dream. So don't make it about you. I was like, okay, Connor, let his dad fucking have it. But later on, we find out why Connor's dad said what he said, and I'm gonna get on that. So then we get a scene where Bonnie comes over to Annalise's house. Pretty much, we can definitely see that Annalise is like, we're definitely still working our plan to take down the governor or whatever, especially after they didn't kill, Nate's father. So we definitely see all that go on, and we definitely see that Nate is really unhinged. Like, we definitely see that Nate is like hell bent on getting revenge on the governor for killing his dad. And it's funny because while she's there, she gets a call from Miller. And if anything, what they're trying to do also is that Annalise and Nate are trying to find out, he wants to know the contact who Miller contacted to get his father moved. Who was responsible. And then like, Bonnie, because he asked Bonnie to find out who was it that Miller was in contact with that that was supposed to get his father moved. And then Bonnie was like, well, Nate, why don't you do it yourself? He says, I resigned. So then Bonnie takes Annalise into the room, and she's like, you've been drinking again. The governor's probably watching you, probably got you under surveillance, and you up in here drinking. And then she pretty much said the adoption came out. Again, what adoption? What are they talking about? And then all of a sudden, Bonnie comes out the room, and she tells Nate, she's drinking again. Your dad's case done broke her. So if anything, you need to stop digging before you get everybody killed. And then Nate has that look on her face that Annalise is back to drinking. But I'm like, I don't blame Annalise, because this shit is too much, and she just got to the point she can't take it no more. So then we get a scene with Connor and Oliver. They're in bed with each other, it's the day of their wedding. But then Michaela comes and breaks it up, and she says that, look, I want you to hack this prison warden to find out what's the connection, because whoever who the prison warden talked to was the one who ordered the hit on Nate's dad. So we need to find out who was that person that the prison warden was talking to. So she asks Oliver to hack and find out that information. And then pretty much, Connor finds out that Annalise is not going to the wedding. So Connor, goes to see Annalise, and she's like, how the hell you get my address? She says, well, Asher is Asher is actually one of our best men, so he has to do exactly what we want him to do. So he got the information from Asher where she lived, but he tells her that, I want you there at my wedding, and she's like, I hate weddings. She's like, I didn't even have a wedding. And she was like, well, that's funny because Sam seemed like the type of guy that wanted a big wedding. And she was like, he already had that. I was the side piece. He had already been married before. We got married in a courthouse. But then Connor was like, but Annalise, you're the reason why me and Oliver are together in the first place. But then she said that, but that's funny that you say that, because didn't you at one point said that you wish that you didn't get sucked in and all of that, and that, that I was the problem and all of that? And he was saying that no, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have Oliver. You kept Oliver in, and she was like, you used to always get mad about me bringing Oliver into this and all of that. And he was like, well, honestly, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have him. So that changed Annalise, and she decides to go to the wedding. So then we see Michaela goes to see Nate, and she prints out the fact that Oliver hacked the warden's phone log. Now, and then one of the last calls was an unlisted number. Now, whoever called from this was the one who put a hit out on your dad. Nate pretty much says that, look, I told you to stay away from. He's like, look, I'm gonna handle this. You need to stay out of this, and you need to leave this alone. But she says that, but Nate, I told you I will help you in any way. And she's like, yeah, but I don't need this. So get the hell out of here and leave this shit alone. But he does take the list, and he ends up asking this investigator to look through to find out who was it, the one that made that call. So then we get the day of the wedding. We see that Frank is not going to go to the wedding because he's going to search Gabriel's apartment to find out what's going on. And then he's getting a call from somebody named The One. We don't know who that person is, but this is the person that he's been reporting with, going back and forth about Gabriel Maddox. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to tie all of Bonnie and Miller's conversation, because this was very important. But what I will say is that Miller was supposed to go to the wedding with Bonnie, but that didn't end up happening because Bonnie ended up going by herself. So now I'm going to talk about the wedding. We see that Connor's nervous. And, Michaela pretty much, comforts him and said that, look, you being with Oliver has made you a better person. So, and then we see that, that Asher, so we see that, Asher is with Oliver, and all of that's going down. Then we see also Gabriel and Michaela. Gabriel shows up, and so we see that Gabriel does come to the wedding, and he's Michaela's +1. And then we see Michaela and Asher, and he was like, and pretty much, Michaela and Asher have a conversation. He lets her know that he knows about her and Michaela. He actually heard them through the wall, and he's saying that, look, I know you can be with whoever you want to be with, but again, it makes me feel like I'll never be good enough. And I'm like, poor Asher, he's lonely. And we see that Oliver walks down with his mom, and then Connor walks down with his mom, and you can see that Connor is extremely nervous. He's kind of panicking, but then once he gets in front of Oliver, it all goes away. So it goes to show that they are meant for each other. And then that's, again, we see that Bonnie shows up alone. She's supposed to come with Miller, but she came by herself. But I'm going to tie it to why she showed up by herself. And we see that Annalise is getting drunk in the bathroom. She got her flask with her, so she's there drunk. And Nate is there with her. So Annalise and Nate showed up together. And then we see that Connor and Oliver do their vows. Oliver says that, he always dreamed about his wedding, and he realized that he says that my dream was you. And then Connor says that, you helped me you actually helped me to be normal. I'm going to be faithful to you, and I'm going to get jealous of any man that tries to get to you, and that I will love you until the day that I die. So they get married. They're now married, and they have the reception. And we see that Annalise meets Connor's parents or whatever, and Connor's dad, still being an asshole, he was like, yeah, and yeah, you're. He's like, yeah, and I'm a lawyer too, and I have my feelings about this whole Sixth Amendment liberal talk and all of that. But he says that I deserve to have my opinions. And she's like, well, it's funny because I didn't even ask you. It's like, and then Connor's mom was like, I like her. It's like she ain't got time for your shit. And that was hilarious. Then we see Laurel and Bonnie, they're talking, and then we see that Michaela and Gabriel are dancing with each other. But and then we definitely see that Laurel is swole that Gabriel chose Michaela. You can tell she feels some kind of way, but then again, she's also knows the backstory that something's up with Gabriel, and they need to get to the bottom of it. So she's pretty much saying that, okay. So we pretty much see that go on. Then we see that while they're at the wedding, Frank breaks into Gabriel's apartment. He finds this lockbox, and in it is a green paper, and there's a birth certificate. But that was exactly what he needed. He was like, here we go. I done found the smoking gun. So it's a birth certificate, but we later on find out what is it about this birth certificate that's so significant. So then we see that Annalise is still, getting drunk. She's sitting in the church drinking her liquor, and drinking her and then all of a sudden Gabriel comes in, and he was like, you're drunk. He's like, oh no. She's like, oh no, I'm not drunk. Somebody poured alcohol on me. I'm fine. But then she drops her purse, and he sees the flask in her purse, and she drops her keys. He actually puts the keys in his pocket. So, but then he's saying that, I really want to help you. My mom went too long to get help. And she says, I don't want you to do the same. But he's like, I got your back, Annalise. And he escorts her, back to the party. And once she gets in there, she's got a lot on her mind. So she starts dancing. She tries to get Nate to dance with her, but Nate doesn't. So she just goes out there and she just starts partying by herself. And that's exactly what we saw in the beginning of this season, the very first episode of this season, where she's like literally getting down, on the dance floor. So then we see that Michaela, Bonnie, and Nate get together, and Bonnie and Michaela asked, did you call the warden? And Nate was like, not here. So eventually Bonnie was like, what the hell are y'all talking about? And Michaela was like, you need to talk to Nate about that. So then Nate gets a phone call. It's the investigator, and she says that I found out the person who called the warden. And he was like, who? She says, check your email. Something about that investigator doesn't sit right with me. I think she's up to no good. But he gets the email, and we see that he leaves the tent. And we see after Nate leaves, we see that Bonnie gets a text from Miller. So Miller done showed up at the reception. And I'm definitely going to tie that all together. So then we see that Oliver is dancing with his mom, and Connor's dad wants to cut in. And he was like, well, as you can see, I'm dancing with my mom. But the mother was like, yeah, you're dancing with your mom at a wedding he paid for. Be polite. So they pretty much dance with each other and they're talking. And he says that, I apologize to you, Oliver. I shouldn't have said what I said, but I want you to know my rebellion was not against you. I just know my son. My son at times can get very rebellious, and he's always putting himself in trouble. You know, and I want to know, will you protect my son from his worst instincts? Little do you know, Oliver already does. So, but then we see Oliver gets a call from his father. His father is doing business overseas. So that's why his father wasn't there, but his father gives him a call, and we see that Oliver leaves the tent. So we see that Nate left, and so has Oliver. One of the two people that were missing throughout this whole wedding thing. So we see that go down. And then we see that Laurel gives baby Christopher to Oliver's mom, and then we see later on when Laurel comes back, she goes to Oliver's mom. She's like, "Where's my baby?" She's like, "Oh, I gave her to the nice blonde lady, Bonnie." So Bonnie had the baby. And the question is, what happened that the baby was sitting on the ground after that whole murder went down? So then we see, as I said before, Annalise was dancing, and then we saw, from episode 1 of this season, she stops when she sees Frank's. And she's like, "Frank, why are you looking like somebody died? Frank, open your damn mouth." And then we see her slapping Frank, but then he presents her with this birth certificate of Gabriel Maddox. I'm definitely going to tap into that as well. So now I'm going to tie this whole situation together. It starts at 3:15 where Miller shows up at Bonnie's, and he's supposed to be taking Bonnie to the wedding. But then, they have a conversation, and she's talking about, Nate's resigned. And he was like, "Yeah, I know, and I'm refusing his resignation." And then, and if anything, she wants, she mentions to him that she wants him to look into some leads or whatever, in regards to Nate Sr.'s case or whatever. And he was like, so what is this? Annalise using you to ask me, I already did the inquest. And he's like, but I'm always constantly feeling like I'm in a relationship with you and Annalise. Is this like a love triangle? And it's like sometimes I feel like you put Annalise before me, and personally I just think she takes advantage of you and your condition. And she's like, my condition? What you trying to say? And he was saying that, look, she manipulates your issues and she takes advantage of you. I don't trust her. Denver warned me about her. And I'm like, yeah, and Denver was more evil than Annalise could ever be. So that wasn't a good fucking person. So you talking about Denver warned me, and, she can't be trusted, and I don't trust her. And, Bonnie starts thinking back on other conversations. She thinks about the conversation with Nate, about Nate and Annalise, and about Miller and his connections. And then she remembered that he has a contact in the governor's office. So pretty much she says that you need to go. And she says that you say you love me, but here it is, you attack the one person who means the most to me. She's like, I can't do this with you. So that's when so 3:15, they had that argument. She ends up, going to the wedding by herself. And the next time they meet up, it's 9:30. So then we see, we get a scene of the actual murder of the wedding, and we come to find out the person that got beat to death, or the person that was bleeding at the wedding, was Miller. So immediately I was shocked, because I'm like, from the time that we've seen it, Miller was at the reception, but we saw Miller, so we thought Miller was still alive. But then again, this is like at 9:30, and finally we see that Miller showed up at the reception, and he went with an engagement ring. And she pretty much, because Miller texts Bonnie that he was outside and that he wanted to talk. She goes out there and she pretty much says that go home. And he's like, I love you. And she says, I know you had Nate's dad killed. And she's like, what are you talking about? You know me. I would never do something like that. And she was like, you know what? Never touch me again. I'm over this. Leave me the hell alone. Get the hell out of here. Just stay the hell away from me. And we see that Miller was about to leave, but then decides to go to find Bonnie to kind of like, you know, this is the woman that he loves, so he gonna fight for her. So he decides to go back, and that's when he runs into Nate. Nate and Miller go back and forth. He's like, you made a call to the warden to get my dad released, you know, and he showed the email is a picture of Miller by the phone booth. But personally, I think Miller's being set up. I think Miller had nothing to do with Nate's dad. And he was saying that, oh, so you were behind this whole thing. He's like, absolutely not. I wanted your father to be free. You know, that's why I made the call to get him moved. I wanted him to get out of that situation. And he was saying that, and the guards, and he was like, no, I wanted those guards charged. That's why I did the inquest. Because I wanted those guards to be charged for what they did to your dad. And then he talks about you got to contact in the governor's office and all of that. And next thing you know, he starts to beat the living shit out of Miller. And he beats him so damn bad that blood is shooting up. And in that moment, we see that Nate had become his father. He had a psychotic break, and he just literally beat Miller to death. And then all of a sudden, so then we see that Bonnie finds them. She had the baby, and she actually sits the baby down, and that's why the baby was sitting in the snow crying. She sees Miller, and she sees that Nate's in shock, and she sees the photo of Miller being at the phone booth. So in her mind, she's thinking that Miller was behind it too, and she ends up smothering Miller, because Miller was to the point where Miller was going to die anyway. You know, he had beat him so bad, there was no way Miller was going to survive that. And she pretty much decides to suffocate him, you know, so she can put him out of his misery. And of course, while she's doing this, she's crying because she's literally killing the love of her life. She's never met a man like Miller. And Miller was about to propose to her, which was everything. So, let's see. What else did I... So we saw that go down. So now we know Miller was the one that was murdered at the wedding. And how they played everything back. That's why I love Shonda Rhimes, because the way she sets this show up, you be thinking you know the murder, and then once you figure it out, and once everything gets displayed, you realize how off you really were. And I was just so here for it, because all this time I was thinking either Nate or Oliver was the ones who was one of the people that was murdered. Turns out the whole time that the person that was murdered at the wedding was Miller. And personally, that kill is on Nate. I don't put it on Bonnie. Bonnie did the right thing by suffocating him, because he wasn't going to survive that. That man was in the middle of the snow literally bleeding the fuck out. You know, he probably damaged some internal organs, probably broke some ribs, and he literally beat that man down. Miller was not going to survive that. So Bonnie did what she had to do, but that kill is on him. And then we see that Bonnie gives Nate instructions as to what to do, tells him, to clear the scene and, get him out of here. So we see that he does that, and then we see that Miller had an engagement ring in his pocket. He found it, and Nate put it in his. And I'm like, I wonder how this is going to turn out. But yeah. But then again, it's like, here it is. This, like, and it makes you question, if Miller was the killer, and why would he want to propose to Bonnie when he knows how close Bonnie and Nate are? That's why I think Miller was set up, and I think that investigator is also working with the governor as well. And then we see that Bonnie, before so therefore, and we come to find out that the only person besides Bonnie that knew that Miller was at the reception was Asher. And that's when she immediately knew something went down, because after she told Miller off, she went back to the reception, and we see that Asher and Bonnie have a moment, and we see that Miss Hampton, who's Oliver's mom, gives the baby to Bonnie, and that's when Bobby got the baby. And she's sitting there with the baby, and then Asher was like, so, where's Miller? And she's like, he didn't come. And she was like, yes, he did. I just saw him outside with Nate. So the only person that can place them two besides Bonnie is Asher. And now that Miller's gonna turn up dead, yeah, that's gonna be interesting too when it comes back. And then we see that Connor's mom asks for Asher to help her to find some flats in her car, which within that situation they got to the car, and one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, we see Connor walking up, seeing the mama getting her box ate out, and then all of a sudden we see that at that moment Connor just was like, you motherfucker, you up in here getting nasty and freaky with my mom? Really, dude? But hey, both of them were lonely, so that chemistry was there. But then all of a sudden we see that Connor's sister says that we found Oliver. So now we find out that Oliver went out there to talk to his father, and his father told him to do a grand gesture. So what he does is that he sings All of Me by John Legend. And I have to say, Conrad Rickamora is so incredibly talented. I've actually followed him on Twitter, and the man is just incredible and has a beautiful voice. So he's singing All of Me to Connor, and then we see that Asher feels ashamed because here it is, you up in there eating Connor's mom's box at the wedding, and Connor found out about it, and Connor right now is not trying to give Asher no attention whatsoever. But we see that Asher looks ashamed. And then all of a sudden, after the performance or whatever, and then we even see Connor's dad was even happy too to see Oliver perform for Connor. So he really sees that the love between them is real. So then after that performance, Laurel asks Michaela, where's Gabriel? So Gabriel then disappeared. And then we see that after Annalise has had her run-in with Nate, she goes home. She doesn't have her keys, so she uses the spare key to get into the house. And she breaks down completely, and then all of a sudden she hears moving in the apartment. She's like, who is that? I got a gun. And then come to find out, it was Gabriel's ass. So Gabriel literally took her keys, went to her apartment, and literally hid in her apartment the whole time. And then all of a sudden, Gabriel appears. She's like, I just came here to see if you were okay. I just wanted to make sure that you were all right. And she stands up and was like, I know who you are. We get a flashback to when she slapped Nate The reason why she slapped Nate is because he revealed Gabriel is Sam's kid. So we see the birth certificate. That's the child that Sam had with his first wife. And now this child is here. And then next thing you know, we see Gabriel, and then they do this camera trick where they kind of go around him, and when it comes back, Sam is standing there, and I'm like, wow, he looked like he could be Sam's son. So that's where it ended. So now we know that Gabriel is Sam's son, you know, from his first wife. The question is, why is he there, and what is his intentions towards Annalise? So that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But I had to say, this fall finale was everything, and they delivered. So subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you get notifications every time I drop a video. Also, follow me on all of my social platforms. I have them all listed in the description box. Also, like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next with the next premiere of, you know, with the mid-season premiere of How to Get Away with Murder. So until then, everybody, take care.